Hi book lovers, I'm at Villa Samadhi right now and it's a beautiful place as you can see. I've got a pool behind me, a turtle on my right and a couple of books in my little room, and it's just an amazing place to be in. So this place is just it's nestled in KL. I'm actually in the middle of the city, but I feel like I'm actually not in the city, disconnected from reality or some stuff. You don't have to go out, you just come here to read a book and do nothing really. There's only this pool and it's not even a gym here. But it's a lovely place to be in, and it's also a lovely place for me to review this book that I just read, which is the Netflix It's Not Going to Work book. So I think, yeah, so the title is called This Will Never Work, and I love this book a lot because it kind of like covers the journey of a real startup, no sugarcoating whatsoever, and it's written by the founder himself, and there's so much to learn from it. So I really like this book a lot. So just to kind of like recap about Netflix, I'm a big Netflix binger. I do watch a lot of movies on Netflix, and I didn't know it was called Kibbles in the beginning. They had this thing called beta titles for companies. It's like as though everybody in Silicon Valley knows that the company starts off with a name, and that name can change anytime in the future. So they call it beta titles. So Netflix titling company name was actually called Kibbles. And they started out with renting DVDs. They didn't start out with streaming videos from the beginning. So but what they did was they started off an e-commerce business, and you can actually rent DVDs instead from blockbusters, instead from the blockbuster, their competitor. You rent them on their website, and this was actually in the late 90s during the dot-com bubble bust, and they managed to survive it, right? And no one knew in the future that there's going to be streaming. People are going to be streaming movies from the internet rather than renting tapes and DVDs. So there are a couple of takeaways that I wanted to share. Actually, 3 takeaways that was quite profound for me. It was early on in the beginning with Netflix trying to raise money, and they were going around town looking for investors. So there was one time they found an investor. He's French, and they went on to visit him to pitch to him about this idea of renting DVDs online. And this French guy was actually from the entertainment industry, so he knew all these new technologies that are appearing for the industry. For example, DVDs in that case. It was interesting to know that when they went to him at that time, DVDs was just starting to appear in the United States. There wasn't even a lot of demand for it. The sales for DVD players is very small. The community is very small. So imagine at that time, DVD wasn't really full blown yet. Not even around the world, except Japan. Japan was actually picking it up quite fast. So they went up to this French gentleman, and they pitched him the idea that, you can rent DVDs, and you don't have to go to a physical store anymore. We just send you the DVDs, and we would like you to invest in the company. So, to their surprise, this French guy said that the idea was crap. And the reason for it was that at that point of time, he knew that DVD was a technology that's going to die anyway. It was just going to be a past fad. And truth be told, DVD didn't really last that long, as far as I can remember here. But what Netflix did was, it did go ahead to create a business around renting DVDs. And I think the key to their survival was that they started off on the e-commerce foot. To set up their website, their payment gateways, their abilities to logistically send DVDs to people's homes, one-day delivery, all of that knowledge, right, they got in the late 90s to early 2000s, when the internet was, trying to boom again, allowed them to reposition themselves very well for the Netflix we know today, which is basically streaming movies online. So I think that's where Netflix was really strong. I thought it was really, really cool. And they did, at one point, did go to blockbusters to try to raise more money, or to even sell their companies to blockbusters. They were actually hoping for blockbusters to sell their company, because the company, Netflix, was actually burning cash. It was actually losing a lot of money. So they offered blockbusters 50 million at that time to buy Netflix, a company that is actually losing money. But Blockbuster didn't thought the idea was really bad to begin with, and they didn't see any value in it. Fast forward into the future, Blockbusters had only one store left. I think at this point Blockbusters doesn't exist anymore. I probably have to check. And Netflix is 150 billion, worth 150 billion. Just mind-boggling. So the takeaway number 2 was pretty funny. At Netflix at that time, they were not only renting DVDs, they were also selling DVDs. And at one point, DVDs were selling much more, was much more in demand rather than renting. And at that point, they actually managed to develop a new encoder to convert movies into DVDs at a fraction of a time, right? But it wasn't really perfect. There were some bugs here and there. Sometimes the encoding didn't work very well, but most of the time it did. So they decided to encode the latest movie or the latest event, such as the Bill Clinton speech and new movies into DVDs, so that they can ship it out as fast as possible to customers, because customers want it at that time. And that worked all well. So the demand for that was so huge that they got a lot of orders at one go. And at the back end, they actually started to encode these DVDs as fast as they could overnight, right? And started to ship them out the next day. So the funny thing was, they started to ship all of these DVDs out. What they didn't know was that somehow or rather, half of those DVDs were porn DVDs, and it got shipped out to families all over the States. It was a disaster. And of course, the founder went home that night nervously and loaded up the DVD into his DVD player and watched it with anxiety. And what he saw was real porn, like real pornography in front of his eyes. And to reflect on what had happened, it was just a disaster. So Netflix sent out a letter to all of their customers, tell them that they are sorry and they would like to refund customer and have them send back those DVDs for an exchange. And this is all done for free, so it's going to cost the company a lot of money. And the funny thing was that none of the customers actually sent back the DVDs. None of them. So that was pretty funny. The third takeaway is this term that they use in Silicon Valley. There are a couple of terms that I learned from the book. One is OPM, the idea that when you start a company in Silicon Valley, you should always follow the mantra of OPM. And what is this OPM? OPM means only people's money. You should only use people's money and not yours. Why? Because you're going to spend a lot of time building a startup, and this idea, of course, is something that you're not sure whether it's going to work or not. So why risk your money? Use other people's money. So in SV, lots of people raise money all the time from investors to reduce their risk. So that's OPM. But the one that I want to share with you is another one called shit sandwich. And it's something that people in SV serve each other sandwiches, but not in a literal term, not sandwich, not an actual sandwich. It's an idea that if you're going to tell something bad to someone, or you're going to be critical about someone, you serve them a shit sandwich. So what is this shit sandwich that the founder got from his partner? So he had this partner called Reed, who is very honest, brutally honest, and no filtration. And of course, Reed was the main seed investor who invested a couple of millions into the company at the early stage. And of course, the founder was the one who so decided to, he's the one that came out with the idea, and he's actually running the company. The day-to-day operations, he was the actual CEO of the company. And one day, this guy Reed came in and served the founder a shit sandwich. So what's a shit sandwich? For every sandwich there are a couple of layers in that sandwich. One is the bread, and the one's the meat, and the second one is of course some lettuce and some bread, right? So if you imagine that, each layer represents something for this shit sandwich to happen. So Reed served the founder a shit sandwich. First of all, the top bread, he told the founder that he wasn't doing a good job. He didn't have the skills to run the company at this stage moving forward. So of course that pissed the founder off quite a lot. And that's when the second meat comes in the sandwich, which is praising the founder that he did a good job previously, founding the company, getting the team up, being a creator, being a problem solver. So it was an amazing individual. So that calmed the whole situation. And then the letters came in. The letters is that to share with the founder that if he doesn't, if they don't do something right now about the situation, then Netflix would be in trouble. So Reed proposed that he becomes the CEO, and he wanted the founder to give him shares because he's a much more better capable CEO, and the shares should only come from him. So that's mind-boggling, right? And at this point, right, the founder is like pretty pissed off already, and that's where the last part of the sandwich comes in, the bread. Of course, the bread says that if Reed proposed, if this is not going to happen, he's just going to sell Netflix because he's majority shareholders, and divide the funds that came from Netflix at that point. And that was the shit sandwich for the founder, and it was given to him by Reed. And after a couple of thinkers, the founder thought that that was the right thing to do, and Reed was right. He actually bit the sandwich and ate it, and the rest was history. So Reed became this new CEO. The founder became president chairman, and he had less share in the end. So it's very, very interesting to see how the founder sometimes may not end up with the most shares for several reasons. And the journey is very interesting. So I would like to end this Netflix This Will Never Work book review with a quote by this Nolan Bushnell, who's the co-founder of Atari. And he's talking about people who has ideas but doesn't do anything about it. And I thought it was a really nice quote for you to leave this video with. So everyone who has taken a shower has had an idea, but it's the people who get out of the shower, towel off naked, and do something about it that makes all the difference. Yeah, that was an awesome quote to end this. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the environment here. And I've got birds all over me. I've got a turtle on my right. So I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. See ya.